that particular sequence happened to me in one of my fights against Dan Hardy. The guy went for an armbar and his opponent was able to escape and came back on top. So what we've seen, it was pretty real. Hi GQ, I'm Georges St-Pierre and this is The Breakdown. First up, Warrior.
Really nice. Calling strong sides of life and not backing down.
The goal in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to control our opponent without hurting him. However, what is good about it, if our opponent refuses to comply while we have control over him, we have the power to hurt him really bad. We can hurt him in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a submission hold, like breaking a limb, or strangulation as well, so he can pass out. And so it's a very soft martial art, but it could be also very violent. And the Jiu-Jitsu means the art of softness. A little bit like Bruce Lee used to say, like, be like water, my friend. Like, go with the flow. And that's the mentality of Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice and easy. Shoot on him.
You hear the corner screaming, shoot, shoot. When they say shoot, they mean it's a move when you have the fighter going low, attacking the leg of his opponent to throw him down.
Shoot on him. Shoot on him. Go.
This is called a double leg takedown. This is a technique that is mostly used in wrestling. It's actually one of my favorite techniques that I use a lot during my career. The idea is if you want to bring your opponent down, it's a little bit like when you want to bring a tree down. You cut it from the bottom and it falls down. It's the same thing. So when you want to bring your opponent down, you attack the bottom part of his body. You attack the leg because you need the leg to stand up. So you attack the legs and it's easy to make him fall down.
Take his arm.
Kimura locked in.
Our hero is going for a submission hold that we call the Kimura. The Kimura it's a lock that is made to break the rotator cuff of a person. If the person don't tap, obviously.
Turn your hips in. Out. Stay with it. Turn your hips in.
The reason why his corner is screaming at him, use your hips, it's because they want him to use all his body, not only his arm, to execute the Kimura, because all the power of the body comes from the hips. You don't want to only use your arm, you want to use your entire body to create the pressure. It's actually a great advice.
Turn your hips in. Hips up. Turn your hips in. Turn your hips in.
In an actual MMA fight, the coach are allowed to scream advice. So you hear your coach and you also hear your opponent's coach. So you know what kind of advice your opponent is receiving as well. And the advantage for me is that I speak French, and when I compete in UFC, I speak a little bit of Portuguese and Spanish as well. So I was always able to understand the advice of my opponent coaches, but they were not able to understand the advice that was given to me. So it was an advantage for me.
He's in a lot of trouble.
Come on.
Midnight is in very bad position. Midnight is in big trouble.
Relax, you got it.
Now we see that he's holding the lock for a very long time. Normally, that will not happen. If it's well executed, it takes about maybe a second for the person to tap. Otherwise, he will have his arm broken. But of course, I guess for the purpose of the movie, they stretch it out a little bit. The key to apply a submission hold is to isolate the limb of your opponent. So your opponent is immobilized and he cannot move, and you have full control over his limb. If the technique is well executed, you will be able to break somebody's limb. However, it already happened to me in a fight that I had someone in a kimura, but I was not able to immobilize and pin my opponent well. So the position was loose. He was able to move in a way that he was taking more range of motion. But in the position that we're seeing now, it's very well executed. Actually, the choreography is perfect. So it would be impossible for his opponent to try to get out. Normally in fighting in mixed martial art, there is a non-written rule in between the fighter that if they get an armbar, they will normally leave a split second to their opponent to tap. They will not immediately try to break it on the spot. I mean, not everybody respect that rule, but I do. Because we're all competitor and we just want to win. We don't want our opponent to get an injury that can leave him out of competition for maybe more than a year sometimes. Let's skip ahead until later in the movie.
Huge, bro. It's huge, bro. Look at that.
Turn it, don't give him your back. Turn it, go, good.
So now we have our hero. He's on the bottom in a position called the guard. In mixed martial art, it doesn't mean if you're on the bottom that you're losing the fight. Sometimes, yes, you can lose the fight because if you're in the guard, that means you have your legs wrapped around your opponent. Your opponent on top have the gravity to his advantage, so he can land strike. However, from the bottom in that position, you have the possibility of doing many submission hold. And that's what we're about to see now.
Control, look to the arm, switch. Hits! Down, hits down!
So he went to a jiu-jitsu from the bottom, then he switched to what we call an omoplata. And he used the omoplata to get back on top position.
Oh my God, that's a deep omoplata there. He's got the seatbelt.
When they say the seat belt, it means to wrap his arm around his opponent's waist in order to immobilize him, to pin him better. So when he applies pressure, his opponent cannot go with the pressure and have a bigger range of motion. You want to make sure you pin the body before you apply a submission hold. His opponent refused to tap, so he broke his shoulder. Normally in a fight, when a limb breaks, the referee will stop the fight for the safety of the fighter. So the other guy will normally be declared the winner, but that's his fault, unfortunately. That's the hard truth of combat sport, ladies and gentlemen. If you keep fighting after the bell ring or after the referee stops the fight, you will normally be automatically disqualified. You won't be disqualified if you dislocate someone's shoulder if your opponent refuses to tap, because that's his fault. You know, my last fight, I had a guy in a strangle hold and he refused to tap. So what happened is he passed out and the referee stopped the fight and I win the fight. But if he would have tapped and I would have kept the lock on and made him passed out, now I would probably have my victory taken away from me and be banned on top of it with many other kinds of problems. I don't think there is any movie, especially in combat sport, that are 100% accurate. They always need to make it more spectacular and more flamboyant. So, but it's actually a good movie. I've watched it many times and I'm a big fan of Tom Hardy and yeah, it's a great movie. Pretty accurate. Next up, John Wick, Chapter 2. I am a huge fan of Keanu Reeves, and I think Keanu Reeves is fantastic in his movie. And I don't know him personally, but I'm sure he does mixed martial art or jiu-jitsu, because when I see him doing the move, it indicates me that he has experience in it. It's not everybody that can perform those moves. What happened there, it's called a flying jiu-jitsu. It's a flying armbar. It's a very spectacular move. With this move, the guy voluntarily throw himself in the air and fall on the bottom by positioning himself with the armbar. If it's well executed, it's a technique that you can break your opponent's arm. An armbar, there's different kinds of armbar, is when you use your entire body like a leverage and you put pressure on a joint. It immobilizes your body so you cannot move, and with your hand you apply a pressure that goes beyond the range of motion that you can go. However, to do it in the concrete, it's a very risky move, because when you do this, if you miss, your head will hit the floor and you can knock yourself out. But it's actually a real move, and some guys have actually performed this in an actual competition. In movies like John Wick, often we see guys fighting each other to the death, but they have a gun. They should simply use their gun before using all this fighting stuff. There's two components in fighting. There's the striking component and the grappling component. Grappling is more synonymous of wrestling. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it's a form of martial art that starts standing up, but it's specialized in control. In the way you control your opponent, it's either by pinning him, using arm bars, leg locks, submission holds, or strangulation as well. You can control him, or you can also hurt him very bad if you want to. It's a beautiful choreography. It's very spectacular. It's fun to watch. And what I like about martial arts is it's a very global thing. You can be in competition in terms of fighting, in terms of philosophy, but also in terms of choreography. And that was a very beautiful artistic piece of choreography. I really loved it. I love John Wick's movies. It's amazing. Next up, Flashpoint. This is a throw. So he block a kick and he sweep the leg and throw his opponent to the floor. That's an actual takedown. But then after he went on what we call side control. He's in side control. That means he's in like a crucifix on top of his opponent. And he tried to knee his opponent in the head, but his opponent blocked with his arm. And by blocking, that helped him set up a jiu-jitsu, which is an armbar. That particular sequence, it was something that really resembled what happened during one of my fights against Dan Hardy. The guy went for an armbar and his opponent was able to escape and came back on top. So what we've seen, it was pretty real. The way he escaped, it's roughly the way you would escape an armbar. There's many ways of escaping an armbar, and there's many ways of doing an armbar, a jiu-jitsu. A triangle choke is a submission hold that you strangle someone. But the problem is the angle which you get your legs wrapped around the head and the arm. Sometimes that let your opponent breathe a little bit more. But when it's well executed, it takes about 3 to 5 seconds for your opponent to pass out. And his opponent lift him up. And It's one of the ways you can escape. You lift the opponent up and slam him on the floor, hoping that he hit his head on the concrete or on the canvas and he knock himself out. But what happened is he basically throw him off board and fall on the ground with him. This is so far the most realistic movie we've done today, so far. I love him. He's a true martial artist. You see sometimes some movie that where guys don't have any experience in martial art, but now you see the guy is a professional. You can see the way he moves. He's a real martial artist. He's been doing this for a very long time. Next up, red belt.
Take him to court.
Taking him to court.
Good. Got him down. Fight's over. That's it. Fight's over. Finish it here. It's over.
When I train in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I train hard, but I train smart and in a safe environment. It's a sport that can be very dangerous if it's not well done. In training, we do not hit each other with no gloves, because we would hurt each other. If we hurt each other, maybe perhaps we cannot compete and make money. So when you're training, if you allowed strike, you have gloves, and to protect yourself, you have a helmet. When you train in wrestling, you don't really hit at the same time. And if you do hit at the same time, you have gloves. So now we see that they train, but they train with no protection. So it would be very risky to do that. I don't say that it's never been done, but most professional guys, they don't do it that way. So you have to train hard, it's true, because the fight, it could be hard, but train smart, it's much more important.
Good hit. Okay, breathe.
So when you get caught in a submission hold, you need to respect your limit, put your ego outside of the dojo, and be ready to tap. And if you're not ready to do that, you might get hurt and you will not have a long career in this. Your journey will be very short.
You know the escape. Breathe, there's always an escape. All right.
In martial art, especially in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, before becoming an expert, becoming a good, you need to learn how to lose. It is impossible to be good right away in the beginning because you need to acquire the knowledge first. So there's nobody that show up in class and are the best right off the bat. It doesn't work like that. You can have certain aptitude that will make you better than others, but you have to go through that grinding process. So you tap when you get caught and you know that your limb is about to break. So you have to accept defeated in order to improve, gain knowledge, and get better.
You know the escape. You know the escape. Show it to me. Show it to me. Come on. Show me the escape. Yeah! Good!
There is always an escape when you get caught in a certain situation, no matter how bad it is. However, it's like a funnel. The deeper you get yourself locked in that particular submission, the harder it is to escape. It's like when you're drowning, if you drown a lot, it's harder for you to come back on top. It's the same thing in submission. So if you get caught in an armbar and it's in the beginning of the setup of the armbar, it's easier to make the escape than if you would wait until the end and your limb is completely extended, which is almost impossible because it's too late. So it's always possible to escape any situation, but you have to do it in the beginning before you get yourself completely jammed in, so to speak. Thank you very much for watching these clips. These are all movies that really influence me and inspire me in my career as a mixed martial artist. I hope you guys enjoyed.